Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marcus King. I'm an Associate Professor of International Affairs and Director of the Master of Arts in International Affairs program here at the Elliott School. So on behalf of the Elliott School, MAIA, and my program, and the Institute for Science and Technology Policy, I'd like to welcome you to today's discussion on politics, Taliban negotiations, and nuclear security in Pakistan. So it'll be my pleasure to introduce Dr. Hassan Abbas. He's a professor of international security studies and chair of the Department of Regional and Analytic Studies at National Defense University. Dr. Abbas was a Carnegie Fellow from 2016 to 2017, a fellow at New America as well, where he focused on a book on Islam's internal struggles and spirituality, narrated through the lens of his travels to Islam's holy sites around the world. He was a senior advisor to the Asia Society and the Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, after having served previously as a research fellow at the Belfer Center. Previously, he was a distinguished scholar at Columbia University, and he's held fellowships at Harvard Law School and the Asia Society. Hassan and I are actually close friends. We met about 13 years ago when we were both PhD students at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. And I just wanted to say that his perseverance and focus in writing his dissertation, all hours of the day and night, as well as his obvious proliferance in writing, was just a great inspiration to me. In his stories, first-hand accounts of your time in the Northwest Frontier Province was captivating to me and certainly the rest of the students at the school. So what's also exciting is having him watch his dissertation is to know that Pakistan's nuclear bomb, one of the books that we'll focus on today, really grew out of his dissertation. So it was really great to see that develop. So I was speaking to an analyst who pointed out to me just how stark the nuclear situation is in Pakistan. You know, he characterized it as a near-failed state with active insurrections and political challenges, also with nuclear weapons. So what I think is interesting about that is there's probably not another example of a state with quite the same amount of instability and political challenges that has or will in the near future possess a nuclear weapon. So Hassan will address how Pakistan's nuclear posture informs developments, including the rise of Imran Khan to the office of Prime Minister of Pakistan, and also how nuclear issues shape the ongoing negotiations with the Taliban. The talk will be drawing from his recent book from Oxford Press, Pakistan's Nuclear Bomb, which was described as the most comprehensive study of how and why Pakistan acquired the nuclear bomb. So Hassan will also reflect on the trajectory of Pakistan's nuclear program, some of the political motivations behind the physicist Dr. A.Q. Khan's involvement with nuclear proliferation to third countries. So again, I'd like to thank the Center for International and Science Technology, which is also the host of the Nuclear Policy Talks, an ongoing series, for sponsorship of this lecture. One thing I'd like to concentrate on perhaps is I'm interested whether or not there are lessons that can be drawn about, you know, the nature and the methods of proliferation by other small states and what the implications are for sort of how Pakistan did it. So without further ado, Dr. Hassan Abbas.
Thank you very much. Really honored and feel privileged to be here. As Mark said, we go a long way, and in fact, as a token of my this friendship, I today wore my Fletcher School tie. I thought my book is that's something grew out of my PhD work and my friendship with Marcus. So that's my dedication to you and my alma mater, Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, Tufts University. The way I want to frame this topic is through primarily security lens, security in South Asia. However, as you have seen the topic and the title, politics, Taliban negotiations, and nuclear security in Pakistan. I'll link this also with what's happening in South Asia today, which is quite scary. If you just switch on Indian television or the Pakistani television, and there are dozens of those channels which anyone can have access to through internet. There's a war hysteria. There's a push in India that India should give Pakistan a lesson in response to this terrorist attack that happened about, I think, February 14th or 15th, where about 40 or 45 Indian security forces, they were paramilitary forces operating in the disputed Kashmir area. They were targeted by a terrorist, Mr. Dar, who's a local Kashmiri or Indian citizen, but after the terrorist attack, he was in an SUV, he blew himself up and targeted this convoy, a military convoy leading to these deaths. That has created a serious issue, and the reason was, although it happened inside Kashmir, Indian side of Kashmir, terrorist attack conducted by an Indian. However, when the video came out of this political campaign of sorts, of terrorist campaign, saying who had conducted this, the video came out that was made before the attack, and Mr. Dar is speaking with a gun to an audience with a flag behind him, a banner which says Jaish Muhammad. Jaish Muhammad means Army of Muhammad. This is a terrorist organization based in Pakistan, with its headquarters in Pakistan's Punjab, South Punjab, and this is a group which had come out of a group called, there is a larger group focused on Afghan Jihad years ago that this moved or transitioned into a Kashmir-focused group, and then this final group, Jaish Muhammad, which at that time was seen in 1990s, seen as a group which was fully sponsored by Pakistan's Security and Intelligence Network. That was 1999. So for the Indian media, it's a clear sign because this organization is based in Pakistan, so irrespective of the citizenship or the location of the person, there is some at least inspiration, if not direct command and control system from Pakistan which enabled it. So I'm only giving this background to give you an idea of how the Indian side perceives it. On the Pakistani side, the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, who I'll talk about today, came out and said, well, there's not enough evidence that we are involved. We are ready to help you if you show us evidence. And the Indian argument is, we had given you evidence when there were Mumbai attacks and nothing happened. Those who were found involved are still in Pakistani jails, nothing happened. And then what the Prime Minister said, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, which is very relevant to our talk, he said, well, if you are going to conduct any operation inside the Pakistani territory, we will be sure that not only that we will retaliate, but he used the word, we will dominate the escalation ladder. And then he said, we have other means. Also, we will take it further, which was clear reference to nuclear and clear reference to tactical nuclear weapons. So even if it is about politics, even if it is about Kashmir, even if it is about Taliban, it ultimately comes down to this India-Pakistan nuclear rivalry. The Indian argument goes, just giving a snapshot in the beginning, Indian argument is Pakistan continues to support some of the militant organizations in Kashmir, in Afghanistan, because they think they are a nuclear weapon state with 120 weapons, and that's how they know that's the larger deterrence. So that keeps India away from conventional options, which where India is dominant, and India most certainly can do things, but they're held back, which allows Pakistan to keep this kind of a low intensity conflict through proxy wars. That's one important scene within which we are looking at the issue today. The second thing, that's other than this India-Pakistan rivalry, which is at the end of the day a nuclear rivalry, the other issue is of Taliban. There are Taliban negotiations going on, and directly between United States and Afghan Taliban. Pakistan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and UAE are directly involved in this process. However, there are other regional players. We know Russia is following a separate parallel negotiations with Afghan Taliban. I just was reading a tweet before coming in this morning by Zalmay Khalilzad, who said, we are, and his exact words are very interesting. If I can quickly pull that off, because that is directly linked to some of the themes that I have. He says, arrived in Doha, this is this morning, arrived in Doha to meet with a more authoritative Taliban delegation, more authoritative. This could be a significant moment. Appreciate Qatar for hosting and Pakistan in facilitating travel. Now the work begins in earnest. So more authoritative means, of course, we are looking to talk to Taliban leaders who are more mainstream or who are more representative of the Taliban. What does this mean? We have already if we have a withdrawal, US withdrawal timeline in place, what it means, how Afghanistan's future will impact India-Pakistan, how will it impact radicalization trends in the area, how will I hope, personally hope not, a Taliban-led Afghanistan, but in Afghanistan where Taliban will be an important political player, how will that impact Pakistan-Afghanistan relations? That's the second frame for my talk, because that ultimately is then also linked to stability and then nuclear stability. And last but not the least is the political scene in South Asia. With Prime Minister Modi in India, who's about 3 months away, we know of his Conservative Party with hawkish trends in comparison to Indian National Congress, but Prime Minister Modi of India, leading BJP, Bharatiya Janata Party, is known as not only a hawk, but he has taken India in a direction which is away from secularism and pluralism that India is known for. I mean, that's I know, it's one political view. But that's why he's under immense pressure to do something in response to the attack, because that might lead to his victory, or that might give him a face saving. Otherwise, he was facing severe troubles because of economic downturn and some of his controversial economic policies. In Pakistan, Imran Khan, a leader of a new political party, a cricket star who had brought Cricket World Cup to Pakistan, and those of you who are from South Asia and who follow South Asia know cricket in South Asia is like religion in South Asia. It's without reference to cricket, you cannot understand anything. In fact, I'm just returning from Pakistan last evening. I was telling Marcus, I didn't tell him this not to scare him, that I came back yesterday from Pakistan. This was the concern that Indian media had about Pakistan was when there was this lot of talk of Indian attack, that Pakistani media was not even talking about this potential attack from India or this terrorist attack within India, which India is blaming on Pakistan. There was no discussion initially in Pakistan. Why? Because Pakistan is currently hosting with UAE a regional cricket World Cup of sorts. So everyone is watching the cricket. So they had no time to watch what India is saying. But Imran Khan, leader of this cricket star, leader of a political party called Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, which means Pakistan's movement for justice. It came into power for the first time at the national level. There's new hope and new momentum, because he's seen as someone who's absolutely honest, dedicated to the idea of a strong Pakistan, and he's seen as, in comparison to other political leaders who are seen as very corrupt, as a breeze of fresh air. However, the major difference in his case is that he is very closely aligned with Pakistani military and intelligence. In fact, the opposition parties claim that Imran Khan is in power today because the Pakistani military and intelligence made it possible for him. There might be some truth in it, and not wholly. There might be some seats where, I think not might be, most certainly, there were certain seats in the broader National Assembly which came into Imran Khan's lap because the military made it easy for him to work it out. In the end, the most important part from a security lens that I'm looking at is that this is for the first time in many decades that the Pakistani political and military leadership is on the same page. In fact, Imran Khan, as Prime Minister, has given his security policy towards India, towards Afghanistan, on nuclear issues, completely to the military. I must add, the nuclear issue, military, over a period of time, has taken complete control of Pakistan's nuclear policy. So it's not a matter of Imran Khan giving that policy. It was only that any other Prime Minister would have, any independent Prime Minister would have liked to have some control, some discussion on those issues. But there's a mutual consensus. So this is the larger framework. The Taliban negotiations, Pakistan's nuclear policy vis-a-vis India, and Imran Khan, political rise, and what it means for the region. So this is my larger frame. Now I'll start off by going through Pakistan, the history briefly, Pakistan's nuclear program, the history of Pakistan's nuclear program, and how it moved away from just a local national nuclear program to a program which we know facilitated nuclear policy and nuclear programs of Iran, Libya, and North Korea. That's why I framed my title as Pakistan's Nuclear Bomb, a story of defiance, deterrence, and deviance. And that's the frame I'll explain, just to draw some lessons also. And then I'll go back to Taliban negotiations and Imran Khan's rise, because the framework or some of the main themes that will come out of this nuclear story will help us understand where Pakistan stands vis-a-vis the Taliban negotiations and what it means with the new political government. That's the plan. It's a long plan, but I'll try to briefly give you about next more 20 or 30 minutes at the most, so that we can have an interaction and discussion as well. So the nuclear history. Deterrence, it's very basic, so I'll not go deeply into it, but it's very clear. Pakistan made the bomb because India had the bomb. Everything or every major study that you look for will tell you the Pakistan, which lacked resources and which lacked technical know-how in its initial years, they overwhelmingly focused on developing a nuclear weapon because that was seen as the only potential deterrence to Indian nuclear bomb. Why was India making the bomb after 1947, when these countries had come out of that whole crisis of legitimacy, crisis of identity, and both had adopted in 1947, coming out of the shell of the British colonialism. They had come out as a Hindu India, although there are more Muslims in India than in Pakistan, or at least equal number of Muslims in India as in Pakistan. However, the new identity that they either forced upon themselves or others forced it on them was a Hindu-dominated India and a Muslim-dominated Pakistan. And at that time, Pakistan had a significant minority as well, which was in East Pakistan, today's Bangladesh, as well as in today's Pakistan, West Pakistan. But that was the new identity. It's very interesting when in 1947, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Pakistan's founding father, a brilliant lawyer, and many believe Professor Aisha Jalal of Tufts University, she wrote a book, Jinnah, the Sole Spokesman, and she had argued that it was a one-man show because there was no second-tier leadership which was capable of pulling it off. Jinnah single-handedly bargained for Pakistan and won it. But Jinnah was asked in 1947 by a Western journalist at that time, Mr. Jinnah, what if there's a war between China and India? Which side you will take? He said, it's common sense. Of course we will side with India. We'll side with India to fight China. That was 1947. And today it's entirely a different framework, where Pakistan sees its backbone as somewhere in Beijing or around that because of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and elsewhere. The point I'm making, that was the beginning. Then because of the dispute about the border issues, and especially about who owns Kashmir, a Muslim-dominated area which Pakistan thinks belongs to Pakistan because of the United Nations resolutions, etc., etc., etc. There's a long history to that conflict because of that ownership issue, which is linked to the identity issue as well. Pakistan was always doing whatever India was doing. India is much larger, 3 or 4 times larger than Pakistan in terms of area and population. However, India opted for nuclear weapons because India believes or claims that it was looking always at China as a big rival, and because China had the nuclear bomb, India wanted it. Pakistan always argued most of the wars, political rivalries, regional tensions were between India and Pakistan, so it was always meant for Pakistan. To cut the long story short, because I'm just making the case for kind of deterrence for Pakistan, Pakistan had developed its core nuclear capability, I should not say core nuclear capability for the nuclear scientists through managing, through the program Atoms for Peace in the United States. In fact, under that program, some of the Pakistani nuclear scientists who came to MIT at that time played a central role at that time I'm talking about late 50s and 60s, where Pakistan's nuclear program was at a very nascent stage. Often I'm giving this brief history because often it is believed that it was just one nuclear scientist who went to Holland, who was there, who stole some stuff, came back and built a new program. Only partly true. He came up with a new program of uranium enrichment which was not available, or Pakistan had no access to it. But otherwise, the broad infrastructure that was built in late 1950s, 1960s, where Pakistan got these nuclear scientists who were trained in the West, and Pakistan gave a lot of funding and developed resources. How they developed resources in the early 1970s, this is the time when Pakistan was clear that they want a nuclear bomb, because India had tested in 1974, but previously as well, there were clear statements from Prime Minister Nehru of India. There were other leaders as well. So it was not a secret that India is pursuing a nuclear weapons program. When Pakistan pursued it, they did 2 or 3 major decisions. One, the nuclear infrastructure was organized in a fashion that it had access to all the resources. They were about 2,000 to 3,000 nuclear scientists at that time. They were developing the plutonium route, and they were facing huge hurdles because, for instance, France signed with Pakistan a deal for a nuclear processing plant, but it was stopped. There were some attempts to smuggle some items from US and elsewhere. Those were stopped. But this is 1970s and mid and late 1970s. This is the time when one nuclear scientist who was totally inspired by the Pakistani defeat at the hands of Indian forces, which led to the fall of Pakistan, fall of East Pakistan in 1971. That's the time when East Pakistan, and I see Muhammad Yunus from Bangladesh, the great banker who got the Nobel Prize as well. So that country, Bangladesh, which was East Pakistan. Pakistani military, Pakistani nationalists, and ordinary Pakistanis, for them, this was the most tragic moment, because you lose half your country, and you're a country which was created in the name of an ideology. It's Pakistan's creation, and Pakistan's idea is very much like Israel's idea. I think that might be only 2 countries which were created linked to the idea of identity, which is linked to ideology and religious ideology. Pakistan was created for Muslims of South Asia who were seen as being sidelined, being oppressed, and they wanted a homeland, very much like for the Jewish nation, for the case of Israel. There's actually an excellent book by Faisal Devji from Oxford University who compares Pakistan and Israel in terms of this idea for our students, if you're interested. But I'm going back to the deterrence issue. Pakistan developed it and spent on the nuclear development hugely, because that was a matter of life and death for Pakistan. They saw that we lost half the country because of India. We are not going to let that happen again. And that was one issue. And this A.Q. Khan, who now we know through his books, through his articles, and one thing I did for my PhD work was I collected all his speeches, his quotations in newspapers. I interviewed him as well. Anything I could get hold of. Interviewed Pakistani military generals and scientists who had dealt with him. That what had inspired him. Because I'll tell you why I was more interested in his persona. Not only because how and why he made the bomb. That's a very documented story. I was more interested in the second part, why he shared stuff along with some others with Iran, Libya, and North Korea. That to me was more a big puzzle. That's what the puzzle I wanted to resolve. So Pakistan made the bomb with this extraordinary efforts of A.Q. Khan, who returned from Holland, brought some new materials. There was already an infrastructure, and the Pakistani Prime Minister, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto at that time, had gone to Libya, had gone to Saudi Arabia, had gone to China, asking either for technical help or in most cases, financial support. Just a quick anecdote, I was interviewing a Pakistani nuclear scientist who's now based in West, asking him, I understand what happened with Iran and North Korea. Why Pakistan shared nuclear weapons technology, as limited as it was, but it was significant. Libya, if they had received that final consignment, they would have been in a position to make the bomb. Why Pakistan had shared nuclear stuff with Libya? And the gentleman said to me, it was because we owe it to him. He said, I would have done the same thing in he was a very secular, very non-nationalist kind of person. I was stunned why he's making that argument. And he said, because initially the seed money came from Libya. Because Zulfikar Ali Bhutto went to Gaddafi and said, we need a bomb, and we will share nuclear technology with you. And Gaddafi thought this is going to be a briefcase kind of a thing, which ultimately Pakistan will give it to them. Of course, either he was fooled or intentionally or unintentionally, but that's what Gaddafi had thought. I'll again come to this reflection in the second stage. The second thing which made it possible for Pakistan to develop the bomb was this idea of defiance, which is now more relevant to today. Deterrence is, we know the theory, we know how it worked. In case of Pakistan, deterrence was the central principle. It was not idea of expansion, it was not idea about threatening India, it was about your own safety. But defiance was different. Pakistan needed a sense of motivation, and one can argue motivation that you are securing Pakistan from India should be good enough. But no, it was not good enough. So the second motivation was that we are and this is from where it starts getting problematic. I think deterrence is a legitimate, rational idea. It was the idea of defiance against the West, because the nuclear scientists who were at the helm of affairs were convinced that the West is against Pakistan's acquiring of nuclear weapons because Pakistan is a Muslim state. And they said, everyone else has it, the Chinese, the French, the British, the Americans, the Israelis, and it's they called it the Jewish or the Christian bombs, and they said now it is time for an Islamic bomb. And that's why the first book that came out in 1982 was called The Islamic Bomb by two American journalists. That was a frame that was forced on Pakistan from outside, but they internally also used it. I don't know what caused it, from who said it first. But within Pakistan, this was the time that Pakistan, after the loss of East Pakistan, was looking for a new identity. They were always thinking this is a group of six different ethnic groups which were linked with empires previously. How to keep them together? They thought Islam, the religion, will keep them together. And then this argument of defiance, based on your religious identity. Americans are trying to stop us from getting this nuclear processing plant from France, which was true. US had worked very hard to ensure that Pakistan will not get it, because US was getting intelligence from a variety of avenues. So they said, the reality was different. This was General Ziaul Haq Sirra, when in fact, now we have, based on declassified stuff from United States, we know that US was looking the other way. In fact, there are two books. One is called Deception. I'm forgetting the names, well known to American journalists again who wrote it. And there's a recent book by a former senator, a US senator who was involved in some of the sanctions on Pakistan. In both books, they argue that Pakistan could never have developed the nuclear bomb unless US was supportive of it. And they're claiming that, in fact, the senator makes the point that Pentagon indirectly funded Pakistan. I think that's going too far. But I think what he actually means is that the military aid that Pakistan was receiving, a significant chunk of that was in support of Pakistan's nuclear program. So US should have been intelligent enough, and should have known what's happening, and they should have avoided that. Or there should have been some conditions. But US needed Pakistan at that time, 1980s, to push back the former Soviet Union, and was supporting Pakistan's jihadi groups to fight those communist forces. So Pakistan and US alliance was very strong at that time. So there was no way Reagan could have talked about nuclear issues. In fact, again, based on so much of declassified documents now that we have, US had a pretty good idea what Zia was doing, that he was pushing for nuclear weapons in a very strong fashion. They were, once in a while, there were these warnings, soft warnings during meetings saying, well, we have this intelligence that this whole Kahuta area is where you're in the very final stages of making a bomb. And Zia would say, no, it's impossible, that's absolutely wrong intelligence, show me. And then the US Secretary of State coming back to US and saying, this is in quotes, either Ziaul Haq is a master liar, or that he's unaware that Pakistan is making the bomb. So there was, but this defiance was at work. Zia would go back to his own scientists and say, look, Americans are getting every piece of information. We must hurry up. And many people think the Afghan jihad of 1980s was a prolonged war where Pakistan played a role in prolonging it because he wanted to buy time to make the bomb. So on one hand, Pakistan was receiving a lot of support from US. Pakistan was doing a lot for US in response, keeping Soviet Union engaged, pushing them out. And Pakistan was at the frontline stage, fighting it. So they thought what they owe, what US owed Pakistan in turn is to allow it to make the bomb. But at the